is that the amendment be agreed to, and I call the honourable member for Durack.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I do rise today to speak on the Treasury Laws Amendment, Reducing Pressure on Housing Affordability Measures No. 1, Bill 2017, also known as the First Home Super Saver Tax Bill. Deputy Speaker, the aim of this bill is very simple. Deputy Speaker, the aim is to give Aussie families a better shot at realising the great Australian dream. The dream of owning your own home is being cast as being incredibly unobtainable, but this should not be the case. And, Deputy Speaker, it does not have to be. This bill aims to assist those seeking to buy their first home by enabling individuals to put money into their superannuation account with the specific intention of using that money as a deposit to purchase a home. This contribution will be capped at $15,000 per year and $30,000 in total. These contributions can be withdrawn for a deposit at the marginal rate less a 30% offset. This measure is estimated to reduce revenue by some $250 million over the forward estimates period. And what this means, Deputy Speaker, is that $250 million will be left in the pocket of those Australians saving for and buying their first home. Deputy Speaker, that's $250 million extra over the forward estimates period that this government will set aside to free up to support first home buyers, and this is a significant contribution from this government. This government is delivering for those younger Australians, not only with this bill, but in many other ways, Mr Deputy Speaker. And let's just look at our recent record. If we look at our PATH program, which is offering avenues to employment across a range of industries and allowing young people in particular to engage with the industry to get the skills needed to advance their careers. Our revitalisation of the new Education Colombo plan is strengthening that sector and also broadening the horizons of our students. We're increasing the number of medicines and vaccines available or supplied to young people, ensuring their health moving forward as they age. And our innovation and science agenda, along with the NBN actually being delivered, is transforming and empowering our economy. Deputy Speaker, unlike those opposite, rudimentary economics is not lost on us on this side. We know that the best way to lower the price of a commodity, be it electricity or raw materials or housing, is to increase the supply of that commodity. Therefore, Deputy Speaker, to complement the First Home Super Saver initiative, people aged 65 and over, I should say, will be permitted to make an exempt non-concessional super contribution of up to $300,000 or $600,000 for a couple, Deputy Speaker, after selling their main residence, which had been held for at least 10 years. This reduces the barrier for older Australians to downsize from homes they no longer need, or the size of a home they no longer need, helping to free up existing stock of larger houses for those younger, growing Australian families. And this bill will help those younger Australians buy their first home by helping them save for and better access a deposit, which we all know is increasingly difficult to come by. It will also increase the supply of housing, as I've just discussed, by helping older Australians downsize, if they choose to do so, Deputy Speaker, into more appropriate dwellings without that front and back lawn that we all despise on a weekend. We're upping the number of available rental properties with a foreign resident vacancy tax. This will incentivise foreign investors to make their property available to the Australian rental market, Deputy Speaker. Further, foreign ownership in new developments will be limited through the introduction of a 50% cap of the number of properties that can be sold to foreign investors through development pre-approvals. We're also providing $117.2 million to support frontline services to address homelessness. Deputy Speaker, the fact is that if you're homeless, you simply cannot get a job, let alone get a housing loan. So this, of course, is critically important for this particular sector. So as you can see, Deputy Speaker, this government is putting in place measures by which outcomes across the entire housing spectrum will be improved. Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not at this point to at least touch on the subject of negative gearing. Negative gearing as a mechanism does contribute to keeping rents lower than they would otherwise be. And as we know, Labor plans to tamper with this mechanism, as we heard from the previous speaker. Labor's plan to abolish negative gearing will push up rent and impact investments for millions of Australians, including in my electorate of Durack. Deputy Speaker, within Durack, 15% of constituents reported a net rent loss on their financial year returns for the years 2014-15. That is, 15% of taxpayers in Durack own a negatively geared property. That is markedly above the Australian-wide level of 10%, Deputy Speaker. Within Durack, almost half, some 49.7%, of occupied private dwellings were rented in 2016. That is far higher than the Australian-wide level of some 31%, Deputy Speaker. This number skyrockets when you head to the more remote parts of Durack, as you would expect, Deputy Speaker. Within the Pilbara region of Western Australia, for example, which is wholly contained within my electorate, as you well know, Deputy Speaker, over 80% of occupied private dwellings are rented. So Labor's reckless negative gearing policy, as you would understand, Deputy Speaker, will disproportionately harm my constituents in Durack. The only changes that the Coalition are making to negative gearing, and these are contained within the Housing Tax Integrity Bill of 2017, will be to disallow travel expenses associated with investment properties, reining in an incredibly high growth deduction, and also a redefinition of which plant and equipment can be depreciated. This, in stark contrast to Labor's policy, will expand confidence in the negative gearing system and will have no impact on rent prices and investment levels, and is welcomed. We are aware that the amendments contained within the bill represent a marked change in superannuation policy in this country, and we know how fond those opposite are of the current superannuation arrangements for a number of reasons, Deputy Speaker. The first of those is that millions of dollars from their union mates that they're able to take from it, and we know what a rort that is. Secondly, and most importantly, they like superannuation because it's someone else's money. Nothing excites those opposite more than the proposed prospect of deciding how to spend large sums of other people's money, or for that matter, telling people how to spend large sums of their money. So, Deputy Speaker, when looking at these proposed amendments, it's worth reflecting on the purpose of superannuation. As we know, it's designed to provide a means by which people can support themselves in their retirement. And if an individual feels that a house of their choosing may be a better investment than a government-mandated super account they often have limited control over, as we know, why should we stand in the way of that, Deputy Speaker? This amendment that we are discussing today in the bill will give Australians the option to boost the savings they can put towards a deposit by 30% compared to saving through a standard deposit account, which we know is becoming increasingly hard to achieve. This is not something which should be opposed, and those opposite should realise that by doing so they are making it harder for people, not easier for people. They are going to make it harder for people to buy their first homes. Deputy Speaker, some have referred to the current high house price situation as an affordability crisis, and I doubt those who own homes, who are looking at selling their homes, would consider that to be a crisis, but I guess that's a debate for another day. While this bill will allow those who are trying to break into the housing market another, more effective avenue to save for the deposit, whilst also increasing the supply of the housing, there are other ways that people seeking to break into the housing market can find affordable housing. And what I refer to here, Mr Deputy Speaker, is housing stock in regional Australia. Mr Deputy Speaker, in my electorate of Durack, in the thriving, beautiful regional hub of Geraldton, a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house can be found for under $200,000. In the wheatbelt town of Merredin, a 3x1 or even a 4x1, those houses sell for under $200,000. In Carnarvon, which is a beautiful town in the Coral Coast of Western Australia, a 3x1 can be sold for under $200,000 and a 4x2 for under $500,000. And of course, I appreciate in the Deputy Speaker's own electorate, the same would be the case. And indeed in many other parts of regional Australia. And I'd just like to put on record that all parts of regional Australia would welcome first home buyers should the need arise. So, Deputy Speaker, you could argue that there is no affording housing of crisis affordability if you bother to look outside the capital cities. And we know on this side of the chamber that there is more to Australia than just Sydney and Melbourne, and certainly in the electorate of Durack there are many opportunities for housing affordability. So, Deputy Speaker, in summary, this proposed amendment will increase the supply of housing, it will put more money into the pocket of first-time buyers, and it will enable first-time buyers to save for their first home and at the same time supporting empty nesters. It should be supported on its merits, and I call on those opposite to support this bill, and I commend the bill to the House.